Please welcome U.S. Air Force fighter pilot and the founder of the Legacy Flight Academy, Lieutenant Colonel Kenny Ruffin.
Hello, Redbird Migration 2020. It's quite exciting to be here with you. Although, if I were honest, I've got to say, I'm a little bit nervous. You see, as one of the more junior, or I guess I should say, less seasoned keynote speakers, I feel like there's this unrealistic expectation here that I'm going to have this whole virtual presentation thing down and Zoom all figured out. But if I can be honest with you, I turned 40 in a couple of weeks. And this is only my second time ever using this. So hopefully I'll be up to PTS and still be able to pass this check ride. Hold on, sorry. Hello? Oh, hi, Mark. How are you? What? It's not PTS anymore? Just ACS? Airman Certification Standards? Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. Yes, I know. I know my AOPA membership dues are due. Yep. Okay. I will. I'll send you a check tomorrow. What? You don't accept checks anymore? Just credit card and Bitcoin? Oh. Okay. Well. All right. I'll figure that out later. I gotta go. Again, I really appreciate the help, Mark. Thanks. ACS. Got it. Not PTS. Got it. Sorry about that, but that was Mark Baker from AOPA. Just calling to help me out and to be a good wingman. And as a fighter pilot, I can really appreciate that mutual support. And so today, I hope that I can also be of service to you as I have a presentation that will connect with you no matter where you are. F-16s are known for being the jack of all trades. And so in my presentation, you'll find this message relevant to you whether you're a new student or an experienced aviation professional, a manager, an instructor, administrator, or just even the casual observer. I'm sure that my words will have relevancy to where you're at. And so, our flight plan for this speech today is actually 3 micro talks in which we'll discuss various themes and also have other special guests besides Mark. So, I ask that you go ahead and sit back, buckle up, as we're about ready to take off. Part 1 of my speech is called Aim High. It's all about the objective. And as a fighter pilot, there was only one way to begin a story. So there I was. January 28th, 1986. Certainly, that was a tragic day in American history, but one that would capture my attention and change my life forever as I became enthralled with reaching for the stars. I'm sure that most of you watching now realize I'm talking about the Space Shuttle Challenger accident. And while I don't remember all the details of those 73 seconds when I was 5 years old, I know that for the next 10 plus years of my life, the only thing I could do was talk about becoming an astronaut. But you see, I didn't just talk about it, I did something about it. All the books in my local library's children's department? Check. All the books in my local library's adult department? Check. All the books in my neighboring town's library about space? Check. Space camp? Check. Check, check, check. Whatever it is, whatever I need to do, I did it. You see, I was absolutely passionate and committed to achieving the same thing that those courageous Americans set out to do on that cold winter day. This passion will become the hallmark of my life, and quite fittingly, because as fighter pilots, we're known for being laser focused on our target. Some might even say that we're obsessed with achieving our objective. That's right. We don't let anything stand in our way. You see, when we have a threat or an obstacle to our mission, we do one of three things. We avoid it, we mitigate it, or my personal favorite, we eliminate that obstacle that is in the way of us achieving success. So I ask you right now, what is standing in the way of you achieving success? Or perhaps more importantly, what does success look like for you, for your business, for your team, or for your organization? To paraphrase from Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, anywhere will do. As an aviation professional, I'm sure you have a goal or a destination in mind, but the question is whether or not you have an objective. What is it that you're so passionate about that it keeps you up at night? What is it that you're so committed to achieving that you're willing to either avoid, mitigate, or even eliminate any obstacle that stands in your way? You see, it is this level of commitment and intentionality that separates a dream from a goal, an objective from a wish. For me, I was not content with being average or ordinary, and I contend that it's the same for you. You see, Webster defines ordinary as deficient in quality, poor, inferior, unexceptional. Excuse me, Houston, we have a problem. I don't know about you, but none of those things sound like any qualities that I aspire to be like. So let me say it again. Don't be ordinary. Don't be an ordinary pilot. Don't be an ordinary instructor. Don't be an ordinary administrator or manager. Don't be an ordinary organization. Be extraordinary. This is your objective. So the question is, why do so many people settle for being ordinary? I think it comes down to two things. First, they're afraid to be extraordinary. And second, I don't think many people know how to be extraordinary. I'm going to tackle that second question, but first, I want to also phone a friend and reach out to someone who knows a little bit something about aiming high. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy these quick words from Frederick Gregory, former astronaut, Air Force colonel, and NASA deputy administrator.
I think from my point of view, extraordinary will certainly have different definitions, different interpretations. Extraordinary, if you're going to do things extraordinary, you're going to do something tomorrow you thought was impossible yesterday. And by continuing to do that, you raise the bar every day. And so I think an extraordinary person is one who never accepts the norm, who's always looking to do a little something, a little lanyard each day. And so, you could call it extraordinary bravery, extraordinary leadership, but it's the person who does more than the contemporaries and leads a gathering behind him who has the passion and drive to follow this person who is the point person, is the person who's out in front.
There's no way to adequately follow him, and I totally agree with everything he said. His wisdom lays the foundation for both overcoming that fear and for establishing how to be extraordinary. I definitely have lived by several of those principles that he laid out, but I also have my 3 P's that have helped guide me to success. My 3 P's are planning, preparation, and prayer. I'll cover these all in warp speed as the perfect transition to my next segment. The first P is plan. Yes, a simple flight plan for your life. This doesn't require an E6B, and adjustments can certainly be made. But if you don't have a goal or vision for what success looks like in 5, 10, 20 years, you're taking off with lots of runway behind you. But it's not enough to have a destination. You must put in some basic calculations and waypoints along the way, lest you don't successfully arrive at your target. They say that a dream is merely a goal without a plan. Aviation and careers are certainly inspired by dreams, but they are fueled with plans. Don't take off with half-empty tanks. And so once you plot that course, you must do that second P of prepare. This means to diligently and actually work towards your goal and the pathway you've defined to success. Dream and dream big. Aim high, then do something about it. Anyone can dream, and some can even romanticize about the steps to take. But it's something entirely different to actually put in the hard work that moves you closer to your goal. To me, preparation is a critical step if you're going to rise above the ordinary. When you look to those who you admire, to your role models, their success didn't come by accident. It came by effort, by commitment, by dedication, by the sacrifice that prepared them to excel, that prepared them to be extraordinary. And the last P stands for prayer, or you can substitute this for principles. This key to success is focus on the facets of life that provides perspective, purpose, perseverance, and strength when you face the turbulence and storms in life that I guarantee you will face if you are to be extraordinary. The Air Force has a set of core values that all airmen live by: integrity, service, and excellence. That guides who we are and what we do. What is the internal compass that guides all of your thoughts, actions, and decisions? What about for your team or your organization or your business? We will talk about this more soon, but please know right now that if you do not have an upright character, you will never rise above the ordinary, but merely sink below the detestable. And so while we reflect on aiming high in our lives and organizations to our very explicitly defined extraordinary objective, I will transition to our next chat that focuses on the development outside the cockpit. Part 2 of my presentation is titled Stick and Rudder Isn't Enough: Character and Leadership in Aviation. For this portion of my speech, I return to that pivotal portion of my life when I was a cadet at the United States Air Force Academy studying to be an aeronautical engineer. And so I have a quick, simple test, really an easy test for all of you out there that I'm assuming and I'm sure that you'll all pass with no problem. Can you please tell me the 4 forces of flight? Well, if you said thrust, drag, lift, and weight or gravity, congratulations, you are absolutely 100% incorrect. Here are the true 4 forces of flight. For all of you tuning into this session who aren't primary students, or even for many who are, I'm sure that the importance of this topic of character and leadership may be intuitive to you. But you know what happens when you assume, right? That's right, you crash and burn. And so while we all know that speed is life, character is everything. This was the lesson and the entire purpose of the Air Force Academy. Integrity first, last, and always. Notice that this institution's driving factor isn't to create pilots, though it certainly does that. Its focus wasn't on making engineers, though it does that too. But the entire purpose of every day of those long 4 years is simply to create leaders who have character. Because then, and only then, can they be successful at creating pilots, engineers, and so many other things. So let me say it again, loud and clear. Character is the foundation to a successful, extraordinary aerospace career. I've been a flight instructor since 18 years old, and I'm currently serving as one as the highest pilot producing base in the entire U.S. military. And what I've observed over all these years is that the syllabus for flight training is quite extensive, that the details in the manual for the aircraft system is long, and that the numerous operating procedures go on and on and on. But yet, the instruction and the lessons on character development are always a little bit shorter. Of course, we can never prescribe every single detail of correct character, but that doesn't mean that we can't constantly and continuously describe the importance of it. Often, the discussion of character and leadership is reserved for those specific and few milestones of an aerospace career: initial hirings, upgrade training, management roles, etc. Yet, when I think about the criticality of character development, I am reminded about the laws of learning to understand just how ubiquitous that our efforts must be. The laws of primacy, intensity, recency, exercise, and more highlight how it is necessary for character and leadership to not be an aftermarket add-on to our personal development and organizational processes, but that it must be designed into it from the beginning, often and fully. The consequences of not having this perspective are truly life and death. And unfortunately, we don't have to look too far to see the shortcomings in this area. In high school, college, and numerous times afterwards, I've created, directed, or participated in a variety of aviation programs. In each opportunity, I've done everything in my power to individually and organizationally infuse character and leadership into the program just as much as aerodynamics and maneuvers. In founding the Legacy Flight Academy, the goal, or I should say the objective, was never to merely create a flight training program, but rather a life-shaping experience that transcended slipping the surly bonds of Earth. The prime example of this effort is found in LFA's legacy values that are at the very core of every program: loyalty, excellence, goals, attitude, courage, and integrity were some of the main character traits that define the Tuskegee Airmen, and is what enabled them to be superior pilots and American heroes. And so, for a more contemporary perspective on just how critical it is to have quality character and leadership development within our aviation industry, I want to welcome another guest, a good wingman and buddy of mine, fellow Air Force Academy classmate, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Riley, who was former Air Force Thunderbird number 2, to share his perspective on just how character and leadership have enabled him to succeed in aviation and to have an extraordinary career. Motor, what do you got?
Thanks, Deacon, for having me as a guest speaker. I'm Ryan Riley, and I'm the commander of Pilot Training Next. I'm here to talk about character and leadership in aviation. Like Deacon, I started flying when I was in high school. At 14, I biked out to the county airport and started taking lessons from a World War II pilot, and I haven't looked back. To think it's almost been 120 years since the first flight in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, and look how far we've come in aviation. We didn't get here by not taking smart risk and pushing the boundaries. From the barnstorming flyers from the 20s and 30s to the advances in flying through the war period, World War II, to the dawn of the jet age, to flying both the shuttle and now commercial space exploration, space vehicles. It's been pretty exciting to see how fast and how far we're pushing the boundaries. At Pilot Training Next, we're experimenting and prototyping with modernizing military flight training. We've had a lot of successes, and we're learning a ton, but it isn't without hard discussion about what we value and what we expect out of a winged aviator. When we pin these wings on our lieutenants, we take it very seriously, because there's a huge impact that these folks are going to have around the world, and they have to have it with character. Likewise, when we continue to push the boundaries of what's possible, we have to do it and have hard discussions. But with those discussions, if we all approach and we all trust and know that everyone is working to make things better, then we can have those hard discussions and make our aviation community that much stronger and that much more forward thinking. It takes courage to question the professional norms and expectations, but it is absolutely required to make lasting change. The reason we aviators can push boundaries is because of that character. Just like I trusted my brothers and sisters flying 18 inches apart on the red, white, and blue jets, we have to do that same thing in community when making decisions that will have a lasting impact. Leaders and subordinates, supervisors, and those that they work with must have sound character so that they can build trust with each other when we're doing the right thing. Because lots of times the path forward is obscured, and getting there is where we have to have those discussions. This is why character and leadership are so important in our community. In Pilot Training Next, we've gone from thinking and breaking a lot of the initial norms and expectations, and now we're pushing a lot of our big wins about student-centered learning, access to content, seamless integration and immersive training, harnessing the power and the speed of commercial partnerships and commercial software and hardware. That's what's so exciting about what I get to do, and it's been really cool being a part of a team that looks forward and questions about how we've done things the last 70 years and hopefully making that lasting impact here in the military. Thank you for humoring me with a few minutes of your time. Blue skies and tailwinds, my friends.
Again, it's difficult to follow that, and I really appreciate my buddy Motor for taking time out to share his perspective. So to wrap up this segment, let me just emphasize again that without character and leadership, this program doesn't exist. We're not here right now. Without character and leadership, there is no Redbird Migration 2020. Without character and leadership, we don't overcome our challenges of COVID and so much more. And so here we are at part 3 of my speech, and we're coming in for a landing, ladies and gentlemen. And if we are in person, this is probably where 2 things would happen. First, I would take notice that some of you weren't really impressed with my corny jokes and clearly dissatisfied with our in-flight entertainment. Also, the second thing that would happen is, at this point, I probably become painfully aware of just how few people in the audience look like me. And so, this final segment of my presentation is called Above and Beyond, Outreach, Diversity, and Opportunity in the Skies. For a multitude of reasons, with one of the main ones being time, this segment will in no way be a full examination of this subject. Another reason is that I've had the privilege and the challenge to talk about this subject numerous times before, particularly at Embry-Riddle at the 2018 National Training Aircraft Symposium. I will talk about the highlights of that presentation later, but I encourage you to fully review that content by clicking on the link below. Another reason for this abbreviated talk, and something I'd like to bring your attention to, is that of my high school, the Illinois Mathematics and Science Academy, and the efforts of their Director of Equity and Inclusion, Dr. Adrienne Coleman. She has a passion to be extraordinary and bringing diversity to STEM education, and recently published a scholarly article where she presents the D-STEM equity model for education to career pathways. And since we all know that aviation is honestly one of the best careers possible, why wouldn't we want everyone to become an aerospace professional? No, but seriously, why isn't our industry open and available to everyone? For those of you who have done any sort of spin or upset training before, perhaps that pause brought back those feelings of apprehension and anxiety, and you wondered if you would ever regain control. Or maybe you took that pause to think about and reflect upon your fellow students, instructors, your peers, and your coworkers who also come from an underrepresented group. Whatever you did, I'm hopeful that it was useful in helping you to achieve my objective of forcing you to confront the realities of our aviation industry. That is, in general, pilots are 90% white and 90% male. And to be totally clear, the problem isn't that we have 90% of a highly talented, dedicated, but homogeneous group on the inside, but rather that we have an equally talented 90%, equally capable and dedicated 90% diverse group on the outside looking in, or rather looking up, with their feet planted firmly to the ground, with no clear pathway for them to get to from where they are to where we are. Truly, flying is just a hopeless dream for so many of that 90%. And so while I could certainly elaborate upon the causes and challenges of aviation diversity, the bottom line is it just takes commitment to improve them. And so this commitment must involve the effort from everyone at all levels. Fostering an inclusive environment to maximize the potential contribution of everyone is like good CRM. There are no bystanders, and everybody contributes to success. At Embry-Riddle, I presented the 4 C's model, a common framework for professional aviator development, that set forth the objectives of 1, meet the national or global demand for aerospace professionals, and, or I should say, while ensuring inclusive opportunities in order to attract the nation's best and brightest to our aviation industry. The solution I offered there revolved around 3 distinct groups working in collaboration during specific stages of development. I truly do encourage you to review that entire presentation, but the question I asked of those 3 distinct groups are as follows. Institutionally, what are the policies, procedures, processes in place that add or distract from this objective? Organizationally, what are the cultural norms and values that enhance cohesion and effectiveness or breed division and isolation? Individually, what is it that I believe and how do I act to overtly and perhaps more importantly, subtly promote integrity, service, and excellence? Or do my attitudes and behavior project unfair distinctions, negative biases, and other distractions? No matter who you are or what your role is within our community, I offer you the following template in order to improve your outreach and diversity. All you have to do is simply lift. L-I-F-T. Look around, inquire, interact, interpret, form a plan, and take action. First, look around. This is a simple task as all aviators strive for high situational awareness. I'm just asking that you apply that same level of cross-check and intentionality to take notice of the people around you. Who are the other students in class with me? Who are my peers? What does our management team or board look like? This simple act of observation and really just of caring is what's necessary to ensure that we have the best pilots, technicians, tradesmen, executives, and engineers to help us sustain and move forward in our great aviation industry. I had the great honor and privilege of working for the former Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General David Goldfein. And when he was addressing tough issues like this, he would say that we need to squint with our ears. And so what he was saying and what he meant and the focus of step number 2 all comes down to understanding. We live in the information age and a data-driven society where we can easily get the factual data on our demographics, and we can talk to people face-to-face, via text, email, or virtually. Each one of us, after we look around, inquire with the people around us, and interact with the data, must take the deliberate step to interpret and understand what it all means. We must understand that representation matters. We must understand that this may be a difficult conversation, but we're not going to shy away. We must understand that we're not going to get it right all the time, but that we're not going to stop trying. This step builds upon caring to solidify our commitment to change so that we're ready to do something, which is the basis of the next step, form a plan. Much has already been said about planning, and I don't feel the need to belabor this point. But what I will say is while we're all forming plans, please do so in an inclusive and integrated manner. We don't need only women discussing how to get more female aviators, or only minorities discussing how we can have more persons of color involved in our wonderful industry. The saying that teamwork makes the dream work and that together we all achieve more is definitely true. Lastly and simply, take action. We will never have enough resources. We will never fully understand, and we will always have competing demands. So why not be like Nike so elegantly put it and just do it? This is where the rubber meets the road, or more aptly, where the wind meets the leading edge. As we accelerate down the runway, the drag increases, but we keep the throttles forward and press on. As you fly higher and faster, the sound barrier begins to provide more and more resistance, but you power through and you keep going. We must remember that aviation has always been built upon being more than we currently are and achieving beyond what presently exists. Increasing the diversity and opportunity in our great industry depends upon each one of us striving for an improved reality, regardless of what obstacles may appear. You know, I had hoped to end this conversation with a really, truly awesome American hero, original Tuskegee Airman Brigadier General Charles McGee. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to participate, but I do want to leave you words of another equally impressive American, original Tuskegee Airman as well, General Chappie James Jr., with his quote that said, "The power of excellence is overwhelming. It is always in demand, and nobody cares about its color." Well, that's it for my prepared remarks, and I'm hopeful that my comments on objective, character, and diversity were both inspiring and challenging. I look forward to your questions and really appreciate you having me here today. Aim high.